Welcome to the Power of Reading, a book review program that discusses the latest Catholic books. A book is a dream you hold in your hand. This program is prepared for Radio Maria Nairobi and presented to you by the Daughters of St. Paul.
Hello and welcome to the Power of Reading program, a book review program here at Radio Maria Nairobi. I am your presenter, Sister Beatrice from the Daughters of St. Paul, and we continue our journey as the reading community as we continue reviewing our important classical latest Catholic books. And with this program, we hope to promote and revive the reading culture. We want to encourage everyone to read, to develop that skill of reading. And we see that today it is challenging for us to read books, to be close to our books, because we are in the age of modern technology, and the way we receive information and the way we learn has really changed because of the internet. But we realize that even with the modern technology, the book still is important in our journey of learning, in our development, and most importantly also in our Christian faith. So the book is still one of the best inventions in human history and actually in the development of the human person. Today in our program, The Power of Reading, we shall review the book Leadership, a trilogy of leadership and management by Anthony D'Souza. So today we shall be looking at this book on leadership. Now, this book of leadership, actually, the author is a priest, is a Jesuit priest, Father Anthony D'Souza, who is an Indian priest, and actually he was engaged for many years in teaching leadership and managerial skills. And we know that leadership is of great importance in our society today, in every sphere of society. And this, which is a big volume, a big book, actually is a book with 3 volumes in it. That's why it's called a trilogy on leadership and management. Actually, leadership is very important for every organizational chairperson or director, or if someone is a corporation manager or officer in charge of a school, a college principal, a religious superior, a parish priest, a pastoral leader, any person who holds any place of leadership. Actually, I would really recommend this book, Leadership, which is actually one of the best books we have in the world in the area of leadership. And this is the book that we are going to look at today. And even for all of us who may not be in places of leadership or in roles of leadership, actually it's very important for us to understand the whole area of leadership, effective management, because somehow we participate in the leadership wherever we are working or wherever we are cooperating in a certain activity or a certain project. Now, in this book, Leadership, Father Anthony D'Souza seeks to challenge people who are willing to dream, and then he offers help to fulfill these dreams, especially dreams within the area of leadership and achieving certain goals in the journey or in the project that one is carrying out. And actually, he already says, and which we believe is true, that the single greatest problem in any organization is lack of managerial skills in management. At best, most of us can only give what we call mediocre leadership, a kind of leadership, but maybe not very well focused. Some people, of course, have natural leadership gifts, and with ease, they can work well with others. They can motivate co-workers, and they can motivate subordinates or staff that they have, and they never seem to make demands on people. But unfortunately, most of us are not in this category, and also just natural leadership skills are not enough. So Father Anthony D'Souza, the author of Leadership, insists that for successful leadership to happen, we need 2 things. 1, basic knowledge of group behavior, human relations, and managerial skills. Training in applying these skills. So leadership is something that we have to learn, we have to train ourselves, we have to have certain knowledge that helps us. And he actually quotes Psalm 78, verse 72, which gives actually a kind of tribute to good leadership and management. And it says, "With upright hearts he tended them and guided them with skillful hand." With upright hearts he tended them and guided them with skillful hands. Words like management may be 20th century terms, yet the human skills needed for effective managerial skills are actually as ancient as the Old Testament itself. And the author gives also the example of Nehemiah. Nehemiah in the Old Testament, the post-exile leader who exemplifies effective managerial skills and provides a good case study because Nehemiah planned, organized, motivated, and exercises leadership over the people in and around Jerusalem. Nehemiah's situation speaks to the same issues we face today, and we could easily use the book of Nehemiah actually today as a manual for leadership because his leadership embodies not only the reliable and timeless guidelines, but ones that really, really work. And from the situations that Nehemiah faced, we see some principles that we find also Father Anthony D'Souza in this book, Leadership, is able to integrate. First of all, Nehemiah balanced practical planning with trust in God. He coped with undeserved criticism. He resolved personal conflicts and strained human relationship. He faced financial problems, a kind of financial crunch, and also he was tired of the much work he had done. So he also teaches us how to handle what we would call executive burnout. So this is a kind of introduction to the book that we are reviewing today, Leadership, which is a trilogy on leadership and effective management. So we are going to take a break as we peer through this book, which is actually a very big volume. We may not be able to say much, but I really hope that many of us will be able to get a copy of this book. This book actually was first published in 1994, and by the year 2017, it was actually in its 15th reprint. Just to tell you how popular, how effective this book has been for so many people who are managing or are leaders in corporations, in schools, in religious communities, in churches, and many other places. So let's take a break as we continue with our program, The Power of Reading. Welcome back, dear listener, to the Power of Reading program here at Radio Maria Nairobi. I am your host and presenter, Sister Beatrice, as we continue to review our book today. The book is Leadership, Trilogy on Leadership and Effective Management by Father Anthony D'Souza. Now, this book, actually, the first thing we note in the subtitle is that it is called a trilogy on leadership and effective management. So a trilogy, we know that actually means is either a book that has, there are like 3 books in one. A trilogy can be printed in one volume, as the leadership book is printed. The whole trilogy is in one volume instead of splitting the 3 books into 3 different books. But still, you can have a trilogy that has each volume as separate. So this book is made up of 3 volumes. That is actually 3 books in one. The volume 1 deals with the topic of being a leader. What does it mean? How does one become a leader? How do you develop your leadership skills? That is volume 1. Volume 2 deals with leading others. It's true, I may be a leader. I now have to develop skills of leading others. And volume 3 deals with leading effectively. Leading effectively. So volume 1, being a leader, is divided into 20 chapters. It's quite a large volume. Volume 2, leading others, is divided into 21 chapters. Again, a very big volume. And chapter 3, leading effectively, is actually divided into 14 chapters. It's actually a slightly smaller volume. Now, volume 1, first of all, deals with leadership. And this volume begins by explaining the call of leadership. And it defines leadership not just from a generic point of view, but also from a Christian point of view. So, Father Anthony D'Souza defines leadership in the following way. First of all, leadership is one that seeks service rather than to dominate. Leadership encourages and inspires. Leadership respects rather than exploits others' personalities. Leadership also reflects, praise, and acts on Jesus Christ's words. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your servant, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, as to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. This we find in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 20, verse 27. Father Anthony D'Souza also deals with the characteristics of leadership. He deals with the characteristics of leadership, that they should be goal-oriented, as the leader is expected to see the bigger picture and understand the purpose of the life and work of the group he leads. Number 2, another characteristic of leadership is it should be able to enable others. It enables others. The third characteristic of leadership is that it is concerned because human beings are the most important resource of any organization. And he actually emphasizes the need to treat people as persons and help meet their needs to contribute to the achievement of organizational goals. This places the personal growth alongside the objectives of the organization. So as the organization grows, the other people who are being led should feel that they are growing with this organization. And fourthly, he says that another characteristic of leadership is self-development. A leader should not only develop others, but he should also focus on his development and growth. A leader should not become stagnant, that even those he's supposed to lead are ahead of him in thinking, innovation, in spearheading things forward. Otherwise, the person even loses the leadership that he has. He may have it in terms of a title, but in reality, the person may lose his leadership. Then he also deals in this first volume with the whole question of what is leadership. Now, the topic of leadership, he says, is always a point of great discussions, as the cry of every sector of society is the need of good leaders. Every sector, we always say we need new political leaders, we need new managers, we need new superiors. There's always a gap. So this topic is a very much discussed topic. And it is easy, actually, even for a lay person, a simple person, to distinguish between good and poor leaders. We see also a kind of understanding of the big man kind of syndrome as being equal to good leadership. Sometimes, especially in certain spheres, especially political ones, the one who is wealthiest becomes the leader, which is actually not a good example of leadership. Not that every person who is wealthy is not a good leader, but sometimes it's not actually the case that because somebody has wealth or has possessions, then automatically he or she can be a good leader. Now we see today also in the area of leadership a lot of research and understanding of what we call organizational dynamics. So the author actually ends up distinguishing between leadership and management. Because when you're talking about what is leadership, is every manager a leader? No. Some managers are not leaders. There is leadership and there is management. And essentially leadership is broader as a concept than management because it involves working with and through people to achieve results which are not necessarily institutional or organizational goals. So a leader needs to have a vision that goes beyond the means that he uses to achieve that goal. And a leader should be focused, enthusiastic, objective, well-organized, open-minded, flexible, decisive, courageous, calm under difficult circumstances, and also dedicated. And there are many other things that Father D'Souza discusses about this whole area of leadership. What is a leader? And actually you'll find them in this book, Leadership, a trilogy on leadership and effective management. Then he goes further to deal with what we call leadership styles, and there are many leadership styles. Some leaders have patterns when they are leading, such as telling others what to do. So you find a leader who tells others what to do, and he doesn't allow the people he is guiding to participate in decision making. So he makes the decision and goes and tells the people what needs to be done. Then, of course, there is another style of leadership that is of persuading others, that leaders make decisions, then they try to persuade the others to implement their decisions. This is also another style of leadership. Of course, there is also another one on consulting. The consulting, this is in the case that group members are given an opportunity to influence a decision from the very, very beginning. So a chance is given, maybe ideas are floated or brought forward, and those who are within that group or that organization are given an opportunity to share their own insights and thoughts about what is being proposed. Then you have also a style of leadership which is participating. That means even the leader participates, first of all, as members in the discussion and agree in advance to carry out whatever decision the group takes. So the leader becomes part of a larger group where they take decisions together. Now the role of the leader here becomes to make sure that these decisions are implemented. Then, of course, there is the style of leadership which is delegating. That is, leaders define boundaries within which to solve problems and accomplish tasks. Then they turn them over to the group or to individuals to work out solutions or to implement tasks. This is very common in many of the corporates or companies that we have, whereby different sectors are given the boundaries, they are given the idea what needs to be done, and actually they are left on their own. So that is a delegated leadership. You don't become a leader on yourself, and that's why from time to time they need to make reports, they need to consult the main leadership, but they are delegated, they're given delegated leadership. So sometimes other factors that influence the leadership style also are connected, first of all, with the personality of the leader. The way the leader is might determine the style of leadership that he's going to employ or she's going to employ. If he's a domineering person, they may tend to be more telling others what to do. If they are more participative person, they may want to have a discussion to hear other people's opinion. If they are a detached people, and depending with what type of work they do, they may delegate actually the work. Then, of course, we have the personality of the group also can influence. Sometimes a leader may want to give power to a group, but the group may not be ready for that. He may need to guide them to tell them what to do until they're able to reach a level in which they can be able to carry out tasks without much supervision. Of course, also another thing depends on the nature of the task. Even one person can be able to employ different styles of leadership depending with the task or even environment in which they are working, in which they find themselves. So some type of works may be delegated, but not everything can be delegated. A leader cannot delegate certain things to other people because it's not even allowed within the parameters of his on leadership. So the first part of this book, The Volume of Leadership, deals with everything to do with leadership and other topics that we find there, because unfortunately we cannot go through all the topics, is the functions and skills of leadership, key functions of effective leadership, building a team, which is a very important topic. One needs to build a team so that you are able to demand certain things from this team. Then, of course, even though the leader develops the team, also Father Anthony D'Souza says, okay, there's also what we call individual development, because people are gifted at different levels. And also this can help the growth of the team itself. Then, of course, you see what is the organizational climate, because the organization can create a climate where there is more innovation, there is more creativity, or stifle that which can bring down the enthusiasm of the people. Then, of course, he talks about concept climate, influence of leadership styles, the whole area of communicating, but not just communicating, but communicating effectively, being able to identify communication barriers, and also how one can practice what we call influential communication. Then, of course, he talks also about effective listening, because when a group has to work together, there is great need of making sure that people do truly understand each other. They listen, but don't only listen to respond, but also listen to understand. Of course, also effective talking. There are people who can, within a group, continue talking and talking and talking, and in the end, no one is able to locate the point that they're going to say. So it's very important to have what we call effective talking, and what Father presents here as effective talking. People should be trained, given skills of how to report, how to intervene, how to have a discussion. Then, of course, improving interpersonal relationship. Once people are brought together, there is always that danger or sometimes of certain disagreements which might affect the effectiveness, the success of the project or work at hand. So there is importance also to have group dynamics that are aimed at improving interpersonal relationship. Then, of course, you have feedback. So the leader should be ready for feedback. He should be able to give feedback to the group, not just people do work. They don't know if it was satisfactory, it was good, it was okay. He should be able to give feedback, a kind of evaluation, and they themselves should also be ready to receive this feedback. And of course, Father also deals with the topic of gaining understanding, because as we live in a very quick changing, fast moving society, one has to grow in understanding, not just understanding something which is being said, but also the environment in which one finds themselves. So let us take a break as we come and also have a highlight of what we find in the volume 2 of the same book, Leadership, and that volume 2 that talks about leading others. You are listening to the Power of Reading program here at Radio Maria Nairobi, a Christian voice in your home. I am your host and presenter, Sister Beatrice from the Daughters of St. Paul, and we continue our journey as the reading community as we continue to review some beautiful and interesting books that can help us in our journey. And today, actually, we are reviewing the book Leadership, a trilogy on leadership and effective management by Father Anthony D'Souza. And we have already seen the first part of this volume that deals with the whole topic of being a leader. Volume 2 of this trilogy on leadership talks about leading others. Now, in leading others, Father Anthony insists that it is important to understand what we call group dynamics. And in dealing with groups, a leader is supposed to understand the behavior of each individual in the group and how this behavior actually affects others in the group. So it is important to know who talks, for example, because sometimes you have a group where maybe you are 10 people and only 2 talk a lot. Then for how long and for how often? Now, those are the things. The first way you look at the behavior of people, of course, is the way they speak, the way they express themselves, the way they bring up their ideas. Now, other things that Father brings up here, and actually he has applied a lot of psychology in this book, Human Development, Human Behavior. He says, who do people look at when they talk? Can you imagine? He goes through that because the person the people look at has a certain significance in the group dynamics of that particular group. Then you see who talks after whom. There are people who wait for a certain person to talk, either they affirm what the other person has said, or they even refuse what that person has said. They oppose it. So it's good as a leader grows with a group to see who talks after whom. Then there is also this very interesting dynamic within a group. Who interrupts whom? There are people who interrupt certain people. Why do they do that? What style of communication is used? What is the style? Is it assertive? There are people who come, my word is final, nothing else can be added to that. There's questioning. There are people who communicate always questioning as if they are not part of the situation that is taking place. There are also people who communicate. The tone of voice tells you if they are bored, they're interesting, or they're enthusiastic about the thing, or even they're discouraged. It's good to listen to that. The leader needs to do that. Even the gestures that people use, are they friendly gestures? Are they gestures of despair? Are they angry gestures? These things, we see them every day. And it's good for a leader to have a bit of understanding of what we call the group dynamics, because these observations help the leader to know who leads or influences the group. Then, of course, another important point is the emotional behavior of the group that is presented in this volume 2, Leading Others, in this book of leadership, the trilogy on leadership. Now, emotional behavior that is not healthy can hinder the group. Emotional energy with a good leadership can be channeled into productive effort. Underlying causes in challenges in groups' behavior and dynamics include identity problems. Do people feel at home in this group? Sometimes you find people are appointed to a group or are in a certain organizations, but probably they are not feeling at home. They don't identify. To give a simple example, as Father says, sometimes you have very young people with just one old person. The old person might feel out of place and vice versa. Or even the preparation, the socialization of the person, the gender. Those are things that can affect the person in areas of identity problems. The group is not able to identify itself. People are not able to identify with each other as part of that group. Then, of course, it's important also in the emotional area to see the goals and needs problem. What are the goals? What are the needs? What problem are they causing? Then you have issues of power. Who wants to possess power, control, and influence others? Of course, there's also the intimacy problem. These intimacy problems is in terms of what we call trust issues. Can I really trust the other person who is with me in the group? Dependency. Who should I depend on? Infighting. There are people who fight each other within a group. What do you do with that? Withdrawal. There are people who keep away from everything else. And also pairing up. There are people who pair up come up with an idea and they decide that everyone should toe their line. They should be able to do what these paired people want to happen. Then, in this volume 2, further talks about group life needs, need to accomplish. So, as one is leading a group, they should make sure that this group accomplishes something. Otherwise, the people feel discouraged, they feel useless. Sometimes they can be ridiculed. So, needs to accomplish. The need for working relationship, the leader should try as much as possible to make sure that they are good working relationships. He should not or she should not contribute in a further division within the group, but he should be seen as being just and fair to everyone. And of course, the need for satisfaction. People should be given tasks that at least also raises their self-esteem. Sometimes within a group, one person is heaped with responsibility and other people are left aside and sometimes even reprimanded for doing very little. Then in volume 2, Father Anthony D'Souza, our author of this book we are reviewing today, Leadership, talks about the art of leading. This means that the leader has to hold effective meetings, prepare and pre-plan, understand how to conduct meetings, keeping in mind 2 things: create a good climate and treat members with courtesy, respect, and impartiality, to have healthy and creative discussions. Remember to handle post-meeting activities immediately. So how the leader leads, especially, is seen not only in the leading of the meetings, but that tells a lot because that is where many decisions are made. A lot of work is shared. People are either given enthusiasm for the project or even the way the leader might conduct the whole activity may lead to people being indifferent or slow or less enthusiastic. Sometimes they don't even understand the purpose of what they are doing. And there are things also that he also looks at. For example, in many organizations where there are regular meetings, you find that people do not like to attend these meetings. And if they attend them with very little enthusiasm, they are withdrawn, they are disinterested. And he gives reasons for this because this is a big problem across the board in different areas of society. And a leader should also be aware of that people may not like to attend meetings because of poor leadership, unclear goals, lack of commitment to assignments, group recommendations often being ignored. The group shares something and the leadership decides they are not going to do anything for that. Waste of time. Sometimes the meeting drags on and on. Some topics which are not important are given so much time. People are allowed to talk endlessly. That waste of time can discourage people from attending meetings. Domination. There are people who dominate the meeting, maybe the leader himself or other people within the group, and people feel, I don't want to go for that monologue. Then lack of preparation. Sometimes you realize that the leader is not prepared or whoever is supposed to guide that meeting is not prepared. And also no action taken. You go for so many meetings, but the action is very little. And finally, also hidden agendas. Sometimes there is the main agenda. People come into the meeting, but there's also a hidden agenda that sometimes ends up dominating the meeting. And this can actually discourage people. But people like to see certain things within a meeting. What is really the things that people like to see? And Father Anthony gives us 10 of them. 1, clear role definition. Time control. Members to be sensitive to each other's needs, to be respectful. The meeting should be informal and a bit relaxed atmosphere. Sometimes the meetings are too tense, too formal. Good preparation. Members who are qualified and interested. Good records. Everything that happens should be recorded well, not to come and start saying nobody knows where this and that is. Group assessment. Members are rewarded and accepted work. So when somebody does work, it should be accepted. Of course, there is work which might be below standard, but a person can be helped to understand that this can be improved in this way, but to be accepted, that acceptance is very, very important. And other topics that we find in this volume 2 are group dynamics, group life needs, opposing styles of leadership, leading the people, motivation and satisfaction, demotivated behavior, tips for effective leadership, performance counseling. So when you have people at work, it's good to counsel them. The counseling can be done by a professional, or it can be done within the organization. Performance interview counseling, expressing feelings, resolving conflict, reactions to conflict, assertive and responsive behavior, intergroup conflicts, because sometimes there are different groups which are tasked with different activities, and sometimes there are those intergroup conflicts, problem solving and decision making, which is very, very important in leadership, and selecting the solution. Whenever there's a problem, which solution do we choose and why? So this is the second part of this book on leadership, a trilogy on leadership and effective management by Father Anthony D'Souza, and volume 3 deals with leading effectively. Now, the point of the author in this last chapter or last volume is that knowledge alone is not enough. In the first and second volume, he tries to instill a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. Actually, the book is full of exercises that a leader can do with the groups, but he says actually knowledge alone is not enough. And it takes something more to lead effectively. You can be a leader, but are you leading effectively? And what he does, he uses chapter 13 of the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians to drive home his point. Chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians actually is Paul's great passage about love, which tells us that even if we have all knowledge, we have abundant faith, understand the mysteries of the universe, have the ability to prophesy, and give ourselves fully to others, without love, we are nothing. And then, paraphrasing this chapter, the author counsels that even if we may have memorized every theory of organizational development, yet we have no heart, the head may know many words that the inner person does not understand. Although I may have the highest academic background, without a heart, I fail in my relationship with other people. Yes, even if I burn myself in service to my company and for my fellow employees, but have no heart, my work has been nothing. So he says effective leadership concerns itself with other people. Effective leadership goes inwardly before it can work outwardly. So effective leadership actually starts with the leader understanding himself or herself, growing inwardly with all the knowledge that has been imparted in them, but then having that heart also for the human person for it to work outwardly. So I would really recommend this book to anyone who is in the area of leadership. If you lead a parish, a church, a pastoral program, a project, a company, a school, a college, any area of leadership, and anyone who participates in a group, to have this book of leadership, a trilogy on leadership and effective management by Father Anthony D'Souza, is a book that can change the whole idea and vision that you have of leadership. And this book is readily available in many, many bookshops. First of all, the Catholic bookshop that can be in your country. Here in Kenya, it's also available in most of the leading bookshops because it's also used as a textbook for many of the leadership courses that are offered in different institutions. So thank you very much for being with us today in the Power of Reading program here at Radio Maria Nairobi. Actually, next week, we shall review another book which is a sequel to this trilogy on leadership by Father Anthony D'Souza, and the book is Leaders for Today, Hope for Tomorrow, again written by the same author. I would want us to keep this theme of leadership that is of great importance to all of us in every sphere of life. And I still continue to encourage you, dear listener, to develop your reading skills, to develop your reading habit, to encourage others to read, especially our young people, our children. Let them take time off from watching television, playing games, or playing with their phones or your phone, and give them time to read. If they need encouragement, they need to be helped, please take some time, even if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes with them, so that we can grow the culture of reading that helps the person in the personal development, in their Christian development, and actually helps the person to learn in a different way. So thank you very much. Let us continue reading. And until next week, I want to thank you for being with us. I also want to thank Mr. Timothy Moreithi, who has recorded this program at Pauline's Studio, Nairobi. And until next week, may God bless you. I've been your host, Sister Beatrice from the Daughters of St. Paul.
You have been listening to the Power of Reading program. Join us next week as we continue discovering the wonderful world of books. This program is prepared for Radio Maria Nairobi and presented to you by the Daughters of St. Paul.